Welcome back to another episode of the Hodge-Cast. Today, I want to try and unpack the religion of Islam. Admittedly, I've had people on the show who've been very critical of the faith. So I think it's only fair in the interest and nuance that I get someone on who lives and breathes the faith and we can look at it from, let's say, the opposite side. So today I'm joined by Adam Kelwick, who is the Imam for the Quilliam Mosque in Liverpool. Do you know what, Adam? I won't expand on that. You can give us the details for it. So just tell us a little bit about who you are and the Quilliam Mosque.
Right, so my name is Adam, originally from South Yorkshire, but I'm an adopted Scouser, so I've lived in Liverpool for the last almost 25 years. All my children were born here, so they're proper Scousers. It's a disclaimer I need to get out there. So people often call me Imam, and I sometimes feel a little bit embarrassed when they say that. And the reason is the job of a normal, regular Imam is somebody who's based at the mosque, and they will lead the prayers in the mosque 5 times every single day. Now, I'm not that kind of Imam.
Okay.
So just to get that out there. I used to be a lot more involved locally, back in the day. I was involved in the Al-Rahma Mosque in Liverpool, which is the largest mosque in Liverpool. I used to give the Friday sermons in English there for many, many years. Used to teach classes, be really, really involved in the community. Over the last few years, and this is something which it kind of pulls at my heartstrings a little bit, because I feel like I'm a bit more detached from the local community. And in all honesty, that's where I love to be. But I've been more involved in international work, national initiatives as well. If I'm in the country and it's a Friday and the committee at the Abdullah Quilliam Mosque can convince me to give the sermon and lead the prayers, then I will. Otherwise, I'm usually I am a bit of a jet setter. I do like to travel.
Obviously, social media handles will be in this video anyway, and I'll cue to them at the end. But yeah, if anyone is following you on social media, they'll see you're here, there, and everywhere, Adam. I think it'd be fair to say, yeah. But doing good things.
People say it's hard to follow me even on social media.
Yeah. Well, no, that's interesting because I didn't know that in relation to your role and an imam. So we're already on a roll with the education side of things. Before we divulge any further, we ask all our guests this question, that icebreaker question, and it is, what does challenge mean to Adam Kelwick?
Challenge is something you can achieve, but possibly with difficulties on the way. Now, the reason I say possibly is because a creative mind is often able to overcome those difficulties and still be able to achieve the goal, but by avoiding or bypassing the difficulties which might be there. And I am a fan of creative thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of positive thinking, and I do think many solutions to some of the biggest challenges, what most people face, can actually be found in taking a step back, looking from a distance, and a really simple solution is often able to overcome some of the biggest challenges we face. Mm.
I completely subscribe to that. I mean, that particularly in the things we're going to unpack, I'll outline this more. But I'm very much in the camp of too many people now jump in feet first, not necessarily about religion, about politics, about anything, particularly with the online world that we live in now where it's so easy accessible. I mean, we're talking about this off cameras. Some of the comments you read are just, what is going on through people's heads that they would go out the way to leave such heinous comments, because no one would talk like that in real life, or there'd probably be a vast minority that would.
I think the times we're in is the age of social media, and people are still coming to get into grips with what social media actually is. But I think above everything, again, take a step back. What is social media? Ultimately, these are profit-making companies, and if these profit-making companies recognize that there's more potential for income generation and making money by emotionally provoking people, getting people angry, getting people upset, getting that angry reaction from them, then I wouldn't be surprised if they change the algorithms to promote that kind of thing. So I think that's where we are. Again, if we are emotionally mature I would argue spiritually mature, mentally mature, you should have that ability to stop, breathe, and think about what I'm going to comment before I post it. Unfortunately, not everybody does.
It seems to be we seem to be one of a minority, Adam, who do that. I mean, I often say, look, like particularly with the nature of what I do, the podcast, and probably similar to what you do as well. All publicity is good publicity in that sense, and in a world where everything's digitalized and we rely on an algorithm, they're free publicists, they're a free PR and marketing company.
Yeah.
So if people want to comment, I have no emotional attachment to these people. Obviously, the positive ones, yes, that I'm grateful for that. But certainly any sort of negative ones, I dismiss them. I don't take them on.
I'll give you an advance warning. This always happens whenever I get involved in any kind of public discussion. You're going to get several comments in the comment section saying Taqiyyah. The guy's using Taqiyyah.
I've seen that. What does it? Is that because I've heard it's not a real word, but then I'm hearing that it is.
So in the kind of Islamophobic narrative, what they say is that Muslims have this ability, or we're told to lie, to deceive the enemy. So right now, what they, in their interpretation, they'd be saying, I'm speaking to you nicely and I'm pretending to be nice and smiling, but really I want to take over the country. I'm just telling lies because I'm allowed to deceive the disbelievers. That's their version of it. In the Islamic tradition, it's not really well known amongst the majority of Muslims, Sunni Muslims, who are about 85% of Muslims across the world. From time to time, I'll even ask my younger students, I'll say to them, what's Taqiyyah? And they're like, we don't know. For the Shia, the minority community, about 15% of Muslims internationally, I'm sure the figures are disputed, but they're a minority. Traditionally, what that's allowed them to do is conceal some of their beliefs if it's going to cause sectarian strife when they're living as a minority in a wider Sunni Muslim community. So some Shia beliefs would be considered disfavorable to Sunni beliefs, for example. And so in that case, their scholars have said, in cases of necessity, you don't have to say that you believe this. So it is a concept within the Shia narrative, which is a minority. It's not a concept in the Sunni narrative. However, all these Islamophobes out there are certain that they're experts on Islam, and they'll be warning you that that's what I'm doing to you now. But in reality, what they're doing is just boosting your
well, yeah. So,
with these comments, they're
I mean, I had to stop myself because I was going to say, oh yeah, well, please do post that, but no, if you can help it, don't post that.
They won't even watch. They'll watch the first 5 seconds.
The thumbnail.
They'll hear you saying you want to hear from the other side about what Islam really is. They'll become enraged and they'll like, Taqiyyah is deceiving, and then they'll put their fingers in their ears and burn a few books. And but anyway,
so you must have quite thick skin, Adam, or have you got to that point now where it's water off a duck's?
I've not really measured it. However, what I was taught, and I'm very fortunate, I had a mentor back when I was in my early 20s, when I was involved in grassroots community work. So we used to run football clubs and a karate club, and I had karate students. We took them out to championships in New York. We won gold, and that was an amazing journey. But I was warned by him that whenever you take a path of doing good work, you will be opposed. You won't be able to understand the opposition. You won't be able to understand the motives for the opposition, but it's part and parcel of doing good work. And he said to me one other thing. He said, actually, I'll take it a step even further. If you ever find yourself doing any good work and you're not opposed, you need to check yourself and find out if what you're doing is really good and beneficial in the first place. Because if there's no opposition, it's a sign that you're not doing good work. So it's part and parcel of this. I have
to sort of jump in just out of pure respect. So apologies if this makes you blush as such, but I have to tip my hat off to you because you're coming on. Obviously, you've been on Liam Tuff's podcast. You've been on a few controversial podcasts, shall we say, and you go on there as yourself. You go on there just displaying your beliefs and you as a person, and that for me, irrespective of what people's opinions are, that you can only get credibility and respect from me that you're willing to do that. And it also showcases how passionate you are about what you believe in, and that is commendable, mate. It really is. So fair play to you for doing that, and you know, fair play to you coming on. Obviously, I'm not going to grill you or give you a hard time today. Don't worry. But
if this is what I say to everybody who I've engaged with. If you've got questions which are from a genuine place, even if you think those questions might be offensive or they might cause, ask them on one condition, that it's from a genuine place. You genuinely want to know the answer. It's not a case of, I caught you out, you're false, your religion's false. For this reason, Daniel, this is why I don't entertain debates. I know there are a lot of people in the Muslim scenes on YouTube and they love a good debate. But for me, a debate is more about the skills of the people having the debate than it is about the subject that they're debating. So I personally, for me, I think it would be a dangerous territory to enter into, because I feel that my ego would take over. If I was having a debate, so say for example today, debate about the truth of Islam, Adam versus Daniel. I want to win that debate now. What does that include? That includes you losing. That includes me being better than you. Like, so what's driving me now? Is it the truth or is it my ego? And I've always said you could get the two best debaters in the world. You could get, I don't know, Piers Morgan, and you could get, who else shall we use?
I mean, you started on Piers Morgan. There's quite a plethora of people. Let's go with Jordan Peterson, Douglas Murray, for instance.
Okay, so Piers Morgan, Jordan Peterson, Douglas Murray. Let's set them up for a debate. Piers Morgan has to convince us that the sky is red. Jordan Peterson has to convince us that the sky is green. And Douglas Murray has to convince us that the sky is yellow. They will argue the best argument you've ever seen. They'll use all the best skills and tactics to prove their point. And we might even come away believing that the sky is not blue. But the point is, it's not about the subject. It's about people and egos and who is better. The approach which I prefer is a discussion. And this is what I've always stood for. Even when people, last year during the riots, when the protesters came outside our mosque, one thing I did after I walked over to their side is, okay, let's discuss. Tell me about your issues. And it's not about me being better than you. It's about us together going in a particular direction. But the condition is that it's together. So let's get somewhere together. If we find that we're polar opposites, which is very unusual, by the way. But what I tend to find is you'll always find some common ground with somebody, even people who appear to be your opponents or completely opposite to you, and you're able to navigate. And even if the only conclusion you get to is we're different, we disagree with each other, I fundamentally disagree with you and your way of life, and you fundamentally disagree with me and my way of life. Okay, well, let's agree to fundamentally disagree with respect. You're a human, I'm a human. Let's leave it at that. If you want a cup of tea, you're welcome. Let's go out. If you want a steak, let's go for a steak. But yeah, so I'm a believer that with discussions, there's a lot of benefit to be had. And ultimately, we see lots of people in society talking today. Rather than talking about each other, let's talk with each other.
That's something that we're losing now as a society. And I mean, I seen something the other day online. I'll probably butcher this quote, but it was basically the crux of it was just because we have different opinions doesn't mean we dislike one another. And I think that is testament, particularly, obviously, we'll go into this later on, I'm sure, but assassination attempts based on people having a different opinion. Obviously, I'm referring to the Charlie Kirk one recently, and it's sad that we've got to this place as a society where we can't have conversations. Like, I'm agnostic. I don't necessarily conform to a religion as such. However, do I believe in God? The answer is I don't know. But I firmly believe, and I've said this even when I've had people on who are critical of religion as a whole, I do believe there's a place for religion. I believe that life is quite a scary concept. Death's even more frightening. So if you can follow a faith that gives you purpose, gives you fulfillment, gives you gratification, then why not? Why not run with that? What I draw the line at is when it gets used as rhetoric and influence and this dogmatic approach, and this applies to all, not just religion, this applies to everything in life. That's where I kind of draw the line with it. But I like to understand, and for me, even though I grew up sort of like in a Roman Catholic sort of household, I probably have more of an understanding about Islam, doing the research for this, than I do a religion that I should be on paper conforming to. So for me, it's about education, and you can only do that. You can read as many books as you want. You can watch as many debates as you want. But like you've said, you're going to get that through conversation with speaking to your fellow man, irrespective of what opinions are. It's the breadline, really, isn't it, for society as a whole?
This is it. Speak to us rather than about us.
Yeah,
Simple.
exactly. So I put a poll on, and I just want to put a disclaimer as well. Putting this poll up, I'm not trying to be provocative or anything, Adam. I know you know that anyway, but any of the listeners, I just want to because this is my YouTube audience that this poll's come from. So it was a simple single question with single inventory, and it was just, is Islam a religion of peace? For those who are listening to the audio, the results were 7% said yes and 93% said no. Now, you could argue using a photo of Anjem Choudary probably might have played a part in that, but I was trying to look
I probably would have clicked that one.
Yeah, the reason I've got that up is I just think it showcases I've not got a massive channel, but I've got a healthy amount of subscribers and numbers that we can generate a general idea of where we're at. And for me, I had a feeling no would win for the things we're going to discuss, but not at that level. And for me, that's quite concerning that people have this, concerning from both sides, that people have this opinion on Islam as a religion. And again, a lot of it probably is down to the narrative and everything that's been pushed. So I suppose today we want to sort of understand it a little bit better. So, I'm just going to ask you a few things that hopefully you can expand on. Some of it I'll probably know anyway, but I think it's good to hear it direct from the source. So first one being, who is Allah?
Who is Allah? We heard that at the chants in the riots, didn't we?
I wasn't going to phrase it the way it was in those chants. But
again, if people are asking that question and they're genuine, I'm more than happy to give the answer. So when people are, rioting the streets with their cans of Stella and burning police riot vans down, asking the question, who is Allah? So Allah, it's an Arabic word, and it's the name of God. If you're an Arab and you're a Christian and you go to pray, you're praying to Allah. They call Arab Christians call God Allah. It's literally the Arabic word for God. And so when people go around saying, I'm a Christian, I'm not worshipping Allah, well, actually you are, because Allah is God. Simple. Muslims believe he's very, very similar to Christian theology, except for the Trinity and the divinity of Jesus. So for Muslims, Allah is the creator and he's above his creation, whereas most Christians would say that Allah or God is the creator and Jesus, the Son, is part of that Godhead, whereas Muslims distinguish. There's a very clear distinction between the creator and the created. Everything is creation except for God, except Allah. And that's actually the testification of faith. That's how a person becomes a Muslim, by saying that there is no Lord except Allah, except God.
It's interesting because I probably, naivety on my part, until I recently read the Quran, and in a couple of the early surahs, is it? Yeah, is that pronouncing
surahs,
that?
The chapters, yeah.
So Jesus was referenced a lot. Obviously, it was an English translation. I thought, that's interesting. So did me ChatGPT, Google. I know it's not always right, but then I had, found out that most of these religions follow the same lineage, really. And like you've just referenced, Allah is the same God that other people worship.
This is another thing what you've touched upon. So a lot of people say in Islam, Jesus is only a prophet. I like to remove that word only, because in Islam, the best of God's creation, of anybody who he's ever created, are the prophets. And Jesus was one of them. Not only was he one of them, he was one of the 5 great ones. And so when you open the Quran and you see Jesus is called a prophet, he's called a messenger, he's called the son of Mary, he was born from a virgin birth, he did miracles, he's called the word of God, he was strengthened with the spirit of God, and you see all these things, and it's like, hold on, this is not...
I'll probably put myself in the firing line now, but I'm only going to be upfront and honest. And when I say firing line, I mean the comment section. From when I was reading the Quran, there's not really much. In fact, there's no negativity towards Jesus. He's revered in very high regards, which might come as a bit of a shock to some of the listeners who think that Islam is against Christianity and all other religions. So, okay. So the meaning of the word Islam, what's its? We've seen a poll where people are saying it's not a peaceful religion. How can it possibly be? I've gone down a bit of the rabbit hole, and I can only pluck out things that from the core value it is peaceful. But let's hear it from yourself, Adam.
So just on the question, is Islam a peaceful religion? I think that what that infers is, are Muslims, followers of Islam, peaceful people? I don't know what the current numbers are, but I know it's in the billions. There are a lot of Muslims on planet Earth. And if these people followed an inherently non-peaceful religion, I think we'd be seeing a lot more chaos around us than what we see now. So I think we can say, thank God, Alhamdulillah in Arabic, that it is a peaceful religion, as is Christianity for that matter. Okay, you do see some Christian terrorist attacks and school shootings and all the rest of it, and we see these quote-unquote Islamic bombings and suicide bombings and attacks and everything. But I'll share a story with you. I had an event in Preston once, and we were discussing Islamic law. And there was a chap who came up to me before the event, and he said to me, I've got the Quran here, and I think it's full of murder. I think it's full of teaching to kill people, and he said, you Muslims are told in this Quran to kill us disbelievers wherever you find them. And I said to him, before I even opened the Quran, I said to him, okay, so I'm Muslim, right? He said, yeah. I said, I follow this book, right? He said, yeah. I said, so why am I not killing you? Sometimes you just need to be simple.
What was his response to that?
He was quiet, and then I said, he mentioned himself the word in Arabic, kuffar, which means disbelievers, people who don't believe in Islam. And I said to him, there's a chapter in the Quran which is called the chapter of the kuffar. He said, yeah. I said, okay, let's open it up. His version of the Quran was Tommy Robinson's alleged translation of it, so it wasn't even in the right place.
We will get to Tommy, don't worry.
It wasn't in the right place in the Quran, but when we finally found it, because I've memorized the chapter and I know where it is in the book, but it was in a different place. But that's a different story. So when we finally got to this chapter of disbelievers, it's a very small chapter. It says, "O you who disbelieve, I do not worship what you worship. You don't worship what I worship. I will never worship what you worship, and you won't worship what I worship. To you be your way, and to me be mine." Now, what more do you want? That's what the Quran teaches about disbelievers in regards to how we should deal with them. And you were saying before about peace. So obviously, peace is the priority in Islam. It's not a fully pacifist religion. So in the early years of Islam, when the Prophet Muhammad was calling people to worship one God, because at the time Mecca was full of pagans. Actually, they weren't even people of the book, Jews and Christians. This lineage which you're talking about, they'd changed, and they had
worshipping idols,
different idols, and every tribe had their own idol, and so the Prophet Muhammad comes with the same message what Jesus came with, and what Moses came with, and what Noah came with, all these prophets before, and the people of Mecca weren't having any of it, and they persecuted. They boycotted, they killed, they tortured, they punished Muslims. And for the first few years, Muslims were not given permission to defend themselves and fight back. Later on, what happened is permission did come down to fight. So now this complete pacifism has been has been taken away. And now you're allowed to fight to defend yourself. So you will find verses in the Quran which say, fight those who fight you, and expel them from where they expelled you. And this is what I don't want to say far right because they don't like, but a lot of them are far right. This is what they focus on, these verses, and they don't read the verse which is exactly after it or just before it. They completely ignore the context. It's usually about a specific situation, and then there will be a verse after it which says, but if they lean towards peace, then accept the peace. Because we're taught that peace is better.
It's picking things out of context, isn't it, to suit a narrative? And I know you won't disregard another religion, and I don't mean to be disregarding it, but my sort of take on it would be, and I say this coming from an agnostic point of view, is the same way the Quran, it's not chronological. There might be sort of a negative surah and then a positive one. And obviously, I'm going to say negative, it's based on historical events, but so's the Old Testament. In fact, I dare say the Old Testament is in that regards somewhat more sinister than some of the stuff that's said in the Quran. And again, I mean, no discredit. I'm just saying when people pick things out of context and they cherry pick, there's probably a bigger picture that's not being digested there.
Yeah, and we have ignorant Muslims, we have extremist Muslims, we have terrorist Muslims, and they often tend to take things out of context as well to suit whatever their political needs are at that particular time. Again, you could do the same with the Bible. As far as I understand, my studies of Christianity is a pacifist religion. It's a religion where during the time of Jesus, nobody was allowed to fight or harm, similar to the early days of Islam. Christian scholars have come afterwards and said, well, there's a concept of just war. But this is the thing, even if you go to the Quran, there's no mention of fighting or war except that there's a code of conduct with it. So in the other sources, say, for example, the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, you're told that if you do have to go to battle, and here we're talking about legitimate battle, we're not talking about terrorism, we're talking about literally when you're being invaded and you have to defend yourselves, you're not allowed to harm a church, a monastery, any religious building. You're not allowed to chop a tree down. You're not of your enemy. You're not even allowed to chop their trees down. You're not allowed to harm any animals in the process. And so this is why it's so frustrating where you see these terrorists go with these bombs and just blow anything which is moving. They want to destroy it. But yeah, there is the code of conduct referring to other religions. Again, you're going to have extremists who want to interpret things however they want, and that's where I think I've been very fortunate that not only have I been raised in my 20s within Islam, but it's also been within an Islam which is balanced and has access to the tradition through generations and generations of scholastic work. And I think there is a black and white version which is available. And I think a lot of youngsters do get attracted to that. I'm not saying that they're necessarily extremists for doing that, but they're certainly not very orthodox in their approach. And you tend to find that across the board. They call it the zeal of the convert, or we see, this zeal what young people have, and they're full of testosterone, especially young men, full of testosterone, and
it's like an appeal to
them. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure other faiths have verses which could be misinterpreted, or you could even argue, go one step further and have verses which seem to be blatant kind of chaos in them.
See, I'm in a fortunate situation where I'm similar to yourself. I'm quite well travelled. I've been to different countries. I've embraced the culture, the religion, the beliefs. I'm also in a position now where I get to chat and meet people on the show, and I'm very blessed for that. So maybe I'm coming from a biased angle, but from my experience, there's more good in the world than there is bad.
I agree.
Obviously, to put it in layman's terms, we'll cue the comment section again. You can have 1,000 of positive comments. That one bad one can really get to you. So it's the same when it comes to news articles, headlines. There could be loads of good headlines, but that one bad one, that's the clickbait. We touched on being in a digital age. Now, I've got kind of like I'll ask you this question, then I'll kind of segue into the next one. So, first of all, obviously, how does the non-bad Muslims, let's call them for lack of a better phrasing, how do you reconcile with the extremists? Obviously, we know they're bad people, but given the fact that they're following, or we're led to believe they're following the same faith you are, how do you reconcile with that?
So therein lies the issue, the claims which they make. And the thing is, we have this concept even from the times of the Prophet Muhammad and the generations after him and the generations after him. And it's almost like there's a group of people who appear generation after generation. They're renegades. They go against what every teacher and every scholar has said before them. And they go around and they cause chaos. In Arabic, there's a term which they're referred to as al-Khawarij. And the funny thing is, when ISIS were at their peak in Mosul, in Iraq and in Syria, when people used to call them terrorists, or in Arabic, irhabi, they used to like that name. They used to say, yeah, we're terrorists. And when people call them extremists, they used to like that name. But when you call them Khawarij, which is, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, the opinion of many scholars who I know, They hated it. They hated it because it was almost like you were exposing them for who they were. And these are a group of people. And this is the point. It's people. It's humans. Some humans, regardless of their religious affiliation, regardless of their labels, they're just, I don't want to use the word evil because that can seem kind of generalizing, but for some people, it's just in their nature to cause chaos. And
I suppose a simplified way you could use that is, let's use religion as the tool here. In the same way a cutting knife is a tool. Now, you can use that knife to make a salad, to prep your food, or you can use that to stab someone. So in the same way, I'm just trying to keep it in simplified form here, but in the same way, people can use religion as rhetoric and justification as to why they're doing it, then they're really not using the tool for the purpose it's intended for, are they?
Yeah. And also as well, not to forget that what you have is sometimes you have these sinister people who are coordinating at the top, and then they're duping younger people into the movement. And I think that's what happened a lot with the likes of ISIS. There's a really worrying statistic which I saw, that more Muslims left Britain to join ISIS than the number of people who left Indonesia, which is the largest populated Muslim country in the world, over 300 million population. And we had more people leave from here and join ISIS than what Indonesia had.
I suppose that's testament to when I asked earlier on about being a peaceful religion. If the most densely populated country of where Islam is preached, they're not quick to join radical groups.
Not just that as well, but in a country like Indonesia, they have the Islamic roots and they have respect for the scholarship, and for them, religion is not just, this is my politics. It's their way of life. And I think a lot of people in this country, they struggle with their identity. And imagine you're an average British Muslim, and you see the sights you see on TV. That's going to make you feel like you're not welcome here, first of all. Put on top of that the fact that if you were to go back home to where your grandfather was from, over there that you don't fit in either, because you were brought up in Birmingham or Bradford or London, or you just don't fit in with the culture. And I think a lot of people are suffering from identity crises. They don't really know who they are. And that itself gives you a kind of vulnerability for people to step in and say, listen, you are this. You are an Islamic warrior. We will liberate the world from disbelief and we will take over. I went to Mosul. I was one of the first people inside Mosul straight after ISIS were kicked out. So they were still on the western side of the river, and we went into the eastern side of the river. It was humanitarian work. We opened a leukemia hospital for children, and then ISIS sent a drone over the day after and bombed it. Wow. This children's cancer hospital, and they knew exactly what we were doing, and we had to kind of move in and out of sniper fire line from them. And but the point is, while I was driving through the city, they were painting murals on these walls in Iraq saying, I saw a picture of the Colosseum in Rome and saying in Arabic, Rome, we are coming. Paris, we are coming. And just psychotic. And somebody told me as well, and this is a friend of mine from the Netherlands who went out on a visit to the States, and they were getting deep into the terrorist mindset. And they were saying there's direct correlation, between amount of time played on Call of Duty and membership with ISIS. And it's almost like you've got these young men who they go online, they've got a tribe, they've got a family, they're a big shot, they've got their record, they're really, really respected. And as soon as they turn the computer off, it's back to this world and like, what's going on? So if you can now groom somebody like that and say, well, listen, we're going to do Call of Duty, but in real life, you're going to be a commander for the Islamic State. This is work for God. And even if you get killed while you're doing this, you're going to go straight to heaven. Nothing to worry about, just kill innocent people. Ultimately, I think every single person who signed up to that is responsible for their actions. Doesn't matter how much they were groomed or who they were groomed by. At the end of the day, I believe it's in human nature to know fundamentally what is right and fundamentally what is wrong, and you'll be taken into account for that.
It's refreshing to hear that, because one of the arguments against sort of, Islam as a whole is you don't hear enough Muslims condemning the bad ones. That's an argument I see a lot all the time. Now, I have seen, you've pretty much just done it then, but I've also seen videos of Muslims, disregarding these extremists. So I don't know if it's just a case of maybe it's that algorithm, they're pushing more for the anti-Muslim, so you're not going to see as much as that. But I mean, what's your take on that argument?
Yeah, one thing which really winds me up is people come to me often and they say, why don't the Muslim community speak up about grooming gangs? And I'm like, they do. I could give you a list of people from Scotland all the way down to London and everywhere in between of Muslim leaders, real Muslim leaders, who've been condemning it for as long as anybody can remember. Why don't Muslims speak up against terrorism? They do. And I can give you a list, a big, long list of people.
Where has this narrative come from then?
I'll tell you where it's come from, because there is something in it. There is something in it. And in my understanding, these Muslims who are speaking out are not given the platform. Who is given the platform instead, and this used to make my blood boil, is the likes of Anjem Choudary. So do you realize how every Muslim's heart in this country used to constrict, and we'd cringe when we'd see Anjem Choudary on TV again? Because your average person in this country doesn't realize that he's like not even welcome in mosques. No mosque would even open to give him a platform to allow him to speak there, because he doesn't represent us or what the religion's about. It doesn't matter which sect or subgroup you're from within Islam. Everybody pushed him away. Nobody accepted him. However, he's on the BBC, he's on ITV, he's on Channel 4, he's on all the mainstream news channels.
He was on that poll as well.
He was on that poll as well, just pushing his poison to the point where, and I like to avoid conspiracy theories, but even I'm thinking, come on, this is a setup. This is trying to push some kind of narrative. That how can it continuously happen? Of late, since he's been put down, he's gone to prison. Thank God, we've been freed from his mischief, and he doesn't seem to be appearing as much. But now what I see is there's an absolute vacuum. Nobody's given a platform. So I'll put GB News on or Talk TV. My blood will boil, because all they're doing is speaking ignorance about a religion which they don't know anything about, and they're just repeating these false narratives again and again. It's like, at least have a Muslim on there, and if a Muslim does go on there, they just shout them down and make them feel like rubbish, and then cut them off halfway through.
It just seems like, from what I've seen, you referenced earlier on, they only get sort of a Muslim on to debate people rather than having a civilized conversation. I mean, most notably Muhammad Hijab, I always see him, and I mean, I actually think Muhammad's a really clever guy. He's in all aspects, not just with Islam, and he does hold himself well on a debate front. But I think it'd be fair to say, I don't think he's maybe the prime example of speaking on behalf of all Muslims. Yeah,
Muhammad Hijab is like many other kind of prominent Muslim YouTubers out there, in that they're debaters. They're debaters. Like I said, I suppose there is a need for debate, and you do need to clear up things. But I'm also a fan of doing the debate properly. And this again is taught to us in the Quran. We're told, and do not discuss with them, or do not argue with them, or do not accept in a way which is excellent. You have to show respect. There are boundaries. So in the same way that I said in the Quran, there are boundaries when you're physically fighting. There are also boundaries when you're interacting and talking with people. You can't go around cursing other people's gods, even if you believe those gods aren't true. So as a Muslim, if I follow the Quranic instructions and I'm having a discussion with a Hindu, for example, I'm not allowed to curse or speak ill of the Hindu's gods, even if I don't believe in them, because it's about showing respect. And they likewise could return tit for tat and start cursing my God, and then everyone's going to be upset and angry, and you're not going to really get anywhere, are you?
You referenced earlier on Islamophobia, and some of the comments I've seen online, some people would argue it's not even a real word. some would push it that, it is, and it's, there is a lot of stereotyping in Britain. So first question would be, well, first of all, is it a real word? And second of all, from your experience, what are the challenges that Muslim people face, and where do you think this stereotyping originated from? So I've kind of asked you three things there, apologies. So we'll start with Islamophobia.
It's fine. So Islamophobia, is it a real word? It's in the dictionary, therefore it is.
Just to disclaimer, I knew that, but I just wanted to ask the question.
However, what is its definition? Because words are only of worth if they contain meaning. And even the government can't define that. The government's been struggling for years to come up with the definition of Islamophobia. And I'm just sat back thinking, come on, guys, listen, there's obvious hatred out there. It's obvious that much of it, not all of it, no, I'm not talking about legitimate criticism of Islam, of my faith, of the beliefs, of Muslim people and their actions. There is room for that. But sometimes it goes into the realm of a hate crime, especially when people are calling for harm and for violence and for death quite often. So a technical definition. So a phobia is an irrational fear of something, and so therefore Islamophobia would be an irrational fear of Islam. Do I think people out there have irrational fears of Islam? Yes. Many of them would argue, no, it's a rational fear because I've studied history and I've seen what these Muslims are about, and it's not going to end nicely, and it's going to be World War III, and the streets are going to be running with blood, and there's going to be civil war and all the rest of it. Therefore, I rationally fear Islam. Okay, you're entitled to that opinion. However, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about hate crimes. We're talking about when people are talking about harming and hurting other citizens in their country. So yeah, that's the definition. It is a real word. Do you call it Islamophobia? Do you call it anti-Muslim hate? I think the government just needs to come up with a definition of it as soon as possible. At the same time, I was reminded recently by a black woman who's a community activist. She said to me, I wouldn't hold your breath for the government to come up with this definition, because even if they do define it, they've defined racism. That hasn't really solved it, has it? So even if it is defined, it's not necessarily going to go away. So in short, are people allowed to have opinions or dislike or hate the religion of Islam? Of course they are. Of course they are. You can't force anybody to love what they don't want to. But the boundary is when that leads to harm and violence against others.
Do you feel? I mean, you've probably answered this already, but there's kind of two parts to this. So do you feel represented? Do you feel the government do a good job of representing the Muslim community? And then also the second part would be, the reason I asked that, and you've kind of touched on it briefly there, is a lot of people use this analogy of two-tier police. Muslims are more protected by the government than we are. So what's your take on that?
So the first one, do I feel represented? I've got to be honest, I love this country. I love it. And the more I travel, I've been to almost 100 countries, the more I travel, the more I realize how beautiful and amazing this country is. I do understand people who are working in the 9-to-5s, winter's coming, you're going to go to work, it's dark, you're going to come back home from work, it's dark, you're going to go on Twitter and you're going to see how this country is going to pot and everything's different and there's no future anymore and our kids aren't safe anymore and blah, blah, all the rest of it. But I'm telling you, we have a good country here. It's a beautiful country. Do I feel represented in this country? I think there's room for improvement, but I think anybody's going to say the same. Anybody. Ask them, do you feel represented in this country? They're going to say, no, I don't feel like I am. I've got these issues which need to be... Everyone's got their own opinion, haven't they? So what I would say is find the balance between grateful for what you've got, the blessings, what you've got, and also if you do see a gap, then do something about it. If you want there to be more... I'd say don't wait for the government. So, for example, cost of living crisis. Okay, people are really struggling out there. So what are you doing to help? Are you going to be the one who demands that the government does everything for you? We know that they should, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but sometimes you just need to step up, roll your sleeves up, and do something yourself. Set up a homeless feeding centre. Set up a food bank in your local community. Have a little outreach team who go and check on your neighbours. Do something yourself. I think it's easy to criticize. We're taught that when you point the finger of criticism, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. So It's easy, isn't it, to blame everybody else? Roll your sleeves up, do something. Put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, no, it's a taking accountability. I mean, I've no qualms in saying I think the current Labour government we've got are atrocious. I really do, but I think it's a bit of a cop out to just constantly blame them for everything. Have they made a lot of f ups? 100%. You know, are they doing anything about it? Debatable. I mean, I personally would say not at all. But I quite like that ethos of, instead of blaming other people or other institutions, you know, just use your moral compass and do a bit, because anyone can just take to Twitter or X or, you know, and just spouge the venom and the hatred towards X, Y, Z, and all that negative energy. If you channel that into something a bit more positive, you could maybe be a bit more productive on that side
just
of things.
Another point as well, Daniel, because I recently attended the Labour Party conference here in Liverpool. Attended a few different events there.
Do you do you feel like you get a good representation when you're there at these conferences?
So this is what I was going to talk about.
Okay.
Because walking around the streets outside the conference, when you see the political class walking around the streets, they're so different from your average person in this country. Insofar as they seem to be predominantly made up of a particular class, and it's not the working class. It's not it's not your average people, and I think a lot of this tension comes from white British working class people feeling that they're not represented and they're not listened to and they're not being heard, and I can see why that would seem to be a case a lot more than for other communities. Because I think we often overlook, because the vast majority of politicians are white, I think there's a danger of just seeing the whiteness and therefore assuming that the vast majority of white people in this country are being represented. And I don't think it's the case. To the point where I was actually wondering, is this a Labour Party conference or is it a Conservative Party conference? As I'm walking around outside, all the smart jackets. And I don't have anything against smart people. Don't have anything against educated people. If you were educated in Oxford and Cambridge or Eton, good on you. But there's not representation. And I think this is where a lot of the kind of tension that we find in society is coming from now. And the easiest thing for people to do at the end of that criticism is to point to the immigrants. It's them. Look, they're taking over. When really, I think the issue lies somewhere else. I was asked to speak at a couple of events as well, and I avoided politics. I don't like politics. Believe it or not. Don't ask me how.
I mean, it comes with the territory, but yeah, you're not a fan.
I find myself in all these different places and these different positions with different people. I'm really not a fan of politics. And so my message was just be a nice person. You know, I was speaking on these panels, they were talking about the intricacies of kind of liberal democracy and how to ensure strategic governance and all these big lofty ideas. And I'm just a regular guy. That's the way I see myself. And I'm just like, okay, you want solutions to the problems this country faces? Be a nice person. And if you find another nice person, support them. And if you hear a story about a nice person, share it. And know that everybody has the potential to be a nice person, even the ones who might be shouting at you and opposing you.
I mean, you referenced the immigration, and that really, particularly this year alone, has been the driving force for a lot of, obviously, reform. Keep pushing it forward, don't they? And now they've kind of jumped on the digital ID, which I'll not get into that today. But yeah, what's your take on? Because to my understanding, and if I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up here, but the United Kingdom was built upon immigration, and from my experience, immigration is a good thing. You know, it's very easy to castrate someone based on their ethnicity or what you know, where they come from. But then I look at it, well, my doctor's Asian, my dentist Asian, my barber's Asian. Some of the best places I go for food are Asian restaurants, which, shock of all horrors, are run by Asians. So for me, they're contributing to society, they're contributing to the economy. Then I fail to see. I understand you could go down the argument of legal, illegal, and that sort of thing. But from my look at it, is I just once again feel in the same way Islamist is used as rhetoric for discussions. So is this immigration card. And it only seems to be a new development. And unfortunately, because we do have people that are quite ignorant, they automatically just think, oh, it's Muslims that are tied in with this immigration.
Yeah, I've always said it's, if you take a step back again, look at things, you'll realize that it's not just this country. It's all over Europe, same narratives, just a different local flavor. Go to the United States, immigrants, the Mexicans. In England, the Pakistanis. In Germany, the Turks and the Syrians. And the way I see it, again, I'm trying not to be political, but when the political class, or shall we say the leaders of this country, are telling us the problem is the other or a minority, all that says to me is you have no solutions for the problems what we face.
Do you think there's a divide? I mean, I don't want to kind of put words in your mouth, but do you think there's a divide and conquer tactic?
I think it's everybody knows, don't they? It's a scapegoat. It's a scapegoat. That doesn't mean that our immigration system is run well. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. But if anything, I actually see this recent talk about immigration. I think it's been quite educational and informative for a lot of people. Like what you just said then, the difference between illegal and legal. Maybe people have never even thought about that before, but because of the intensity of the debate, people are looking into it. Okay, then, well, how much does immigration contribute to the economy? Not, by the way, I think that's a bit cheap as well, saying, okay, well, they contribute to the economy, so they're all right then. We don't have to kick them all. do you know what I mean? Okay, they're bringing a few pounds. Oh, we'll allow them then. Well, actually, they're humans as well. Did you forget that bit?
Yeah.
But the point what I'm making is when the politicians are blaming the other, it's because they don't have solutions for the problems. And at the moment, it's no secret that we're going through tough times. Cost of living crisis. The economy seems like it's.
I think that for me is
everybody's struggling.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrations with it. So, irrespective, I'm speaking completely as a neutral here, but I think a lot of people the pent up anger is based on, like you mentioned, the cost of living, the fact that homelessness is rife. There's a lot of problems on our doorstep that apply to everyone in Britain. This isn't just a white working class person. And then when they're hearing stories of, migrants are being put in 5-star hotel, I can see why people would be angry about that. And I think that ties into what you said, that maybe the vetting system when it comes to immigration, that needs evaluating massively.
Yeah. And then, so the way I see it, Daniel, is that everything seems to be bundled up into a package, into a circle. And in this circle, you've got Muslims, you've got immigrants, illegal and illegal, you've got ethnic minorities, you've got people of other religions, and they're all within a big circle. And if any one of these people within this circle makes a mistake, commits a crime, does an atrocity, everybody within that circle gets blamed under the current narrative. And that's why I think we saw the reaction and the riots, what we did in Southport. So even though the guy was confirmed he wasn't Muslim, because he fitted into that category, he was black. Even though he was from a Christian background, he was black. Therefore, he's in this circle of the other, of the enemy. And it's gotten to the point now where anybody within that circle can pass wind, and we all get the blame for it. And it's frustrating, to be honest, because even now, we're here to talk about unpacking Islam, and I'd love to sit down and share the faith and tell people about the beliefs and the core belief that you only worship one God, and then you do whatever good you can do in this life while you're alive here for this short time, and tell you about the afterlife and the reward for people who've done good, but we always get dragged back into terrorism and extremism and all these other issues which we're blamed for, which have nothing to do with us.
I mean, it frustrates me that simply because like what we touched at earlier on is I do believe that there's more good, and I just think rather than judging a whole society of people, a whole religion based on the acts of terrible individuals and what they have done, I think it's wrong. Like, I'm probably going to go a bit extreme here, but let's use Christianity as a blueprint. So we had a spell, particularly in the 80s, 70s, 80s, where there was a lot of Christian priests that were sexually abusing young boys in the churches. Would we then say all Christians are pedophiles? Probably not. But yet this
You don't even
narrative-
have to go back decades. You can see the current, the last Archbishop of Canterbury resigned
Exactly, yeah.
over cover-ups and grooming. But nobody's going to suggest that Christianity teaches the grooming of young boys or young girls or young children for sexual pleasures. The same with Muslims. Okay, there are some people out there who've been part of these grooming gangs, and they're from a Muslim background, but it's not their religion who's teaching them to do this. And there are people out there who are confidently claiming that, yes, this is part of the teachings of Islam.
I've had a few interviews, and I've got a few more lined up about the grooming scandals. One thing that I think people need to realise is a lot of these people who are these groomers, let's say, who are Muslims, they're not practicing the faith like you are. They're not, they're pretty much, they're drinking, they're taking drugs, they're not really following the Quran. So I don't think you can kind of put them in the regard, the same way Anjem Choudary, you couldn't really put them in the same regard as.
You see,
all
Anjem
Muslims.
Choudary is different. Anjem Choudary and his extremism, he claims it's in the name. He does claim it's in the name of Islam, but these groomers are not saying, "Oh yeah, my religion told me to do it. My God told me to do it." They know they're wrong, and that's why their families are covering it up as well, because it's shameful for what they've done, not just on them and their kind of communities where they come from, but also because of their religion. They've brought shame in the name of their religion. But again, compare that with like senior religious ministers in the Church of England or the Catholic Church. And I'm telling you, if it was the other way around, if it was Muslim leaders, religious leaders who were doing this on a massive scale, what it's been seen to be, then we would know about it. But again, I'm not going to see the actions of a few priests and throw Christianity under the bus because of a few perverted men. Okay, there is room for criticizing the institution, which, don't forget, we don't have an Islamic institution in the UK. Every mosque is independent, and it's usually like a local initiative where they set their own mosque up. But you've got kind of like institutionalized cover-ups for years of child abuse. But I would never say anything about the religion of Christianity because of what they're doing. Christianity doesn't teach that. The Bible doesn't teach that. It's ridiculous to suggest it does.
Going back on to Southport, and Jacob, if you could pull that photo up. So for those watching on YouTube, you may be familiar. So this is a photo of Adam outside the Quilliam Mosque, is that?
That's right, yeah.
Obviously, we'll touch on that in a second. Now, for those watching, does this look like an extreme, radicalised human being? I personally don't think it does.
It depends what you're talking about. Which
well,
one?
yeah, of course. But yeah. So obviously, for the listeners, this is a photo of Adam hugging someone who came out to protest and riots, I believe. Do you know what? I'll hand over to you. Give us an overview of how this photo came to be.
Yeah. So we had the tragic stabbings in Southport, and that was followed very quickly by riots outside the mosque in Southport, where I speak with the imam there quite often, and him and the worshippers there, they were literally locked up in the top room, listening to the windows being bricked and wondering if they were ever going to see their families again. They thought that was it. Their protection outside the police, the riot vans were being burnt down. They thought it was over for them, which wasn't the case. But yeah, and then straight after that, we got sent a list of future targets for these protests, and the top of the list was our mosque here in Liverpool. And the protesters came out, and I actually said the day before, I said, anybody who comes to our mosque is going to be treated like a guest, because that's what we do. We look after our guests. If you're visiting our mosque, even if you're coming to shout at us, even if you're coming to attack us, we're going to treat you like our guests. And so we got the kitchen to prepare food. I actually wanted to take every protester inside the mosque and open up these discussions and find out what their issues and concerns were. Because again, the argument which a lot of people are making that we're not being listened to, I think there's a lot of truth in that. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, if the government aren't listening to you and the police aren't listening to you, then I'll listen to you. Because if you want to identify real problems in society, like I said before, get up and do something. why don't you come together with me, your community, my community, and I'm sure we can do something to solve them. Whatever the issue is, let's work at it. So anyway, I was told by the police that the security situation is not good. You won't be allowed to do that. We don't recommend doing that. Or if you do, we can't offer any protection at all. At which point I thought, well, you have got to prioritize security in these situations.
I was going to say, do you feel, because obviously I've kind of interrupted there, apologies, but did you feel, I'm just trying to get in the mindset, the headspace of, you mentioned that people in the mosque were scared. How did you feel with regards to all that? Did you feel?
So obviously Southport, I wasn't in the mosque. The day of Liverpool, when they came outside our mosque there, things were on edge. But again, Daniel, I've got this track record of years of dealing with people like this who've come to shout Muslims down, who've come to argue, who've come to prove that we're horrible, evil people and they're really good people. And every experience what I've had has been positive. And all you need to do is engage at a human level. Just let them see through the stereotypes. Let them realize that you're not a monster. And at the same time, I like the Muslim community to realize that they're not monsters as well. So on this night, not only did I prove to the protesters that Muslims aren't monsters, but I also proved to the Muslim community who are really worried about these people, who think they all want them dead and they all want them expelled out of the country. I proved to them as well that they're nice. And this is the point. Everyone's got this goodness inside them. And sometimes you just need to trigger it or activate it. So yeah, this guy who I'm hugging in the picture, he was probably the loudest person on the protest. And I asked him, before I hugged him, obviously I talked to him, we had a bit of a conversation going. I asked him, why are you here? And he said, because I'm fed up of two-tier policing. I said, so why don't you go and protest outside the police station then? Well, why are you coming to the mosque? But anyway, we had a nice little conversation, and I did go against the police orders with this individual. So after everybody left, we'd taken them food. I did actually take him into the mosque. This guy here I'm hugging, the loud one. And we had a little walk around. I said, see, look, we're not making bombs. We're not planning the takeover of the country. It's just a mosque. We worship God here, and we try and be nice to each other, and we say our prayers, and yeah, we had a really, really nice chat, and we became friends and exchanged numbers. And
I laughed there, and it was just because that is the thought process of some people, isn't it? That they do think that making bombs.
But what do you expect when Anjem Choudary is on the TV, primetime TV, and you think he's like? If I've always said this, if I was a little old lady in Cornwall, never really interacted with any Muslims ever in my life, but I see these stories of Islam taking over in the Sun, which is not read here in this city, by the way.
Yeah,
thank God. So you see these 1 in 5 British Muslims is a jihadi. That was a Sun headline.
For good reason. It's not read here, of course. But no, I totally
I'm telling you,
if
that headline was true, where are the... Yeah, anyway. before you... So the point is, he came into the... If you're this little old lady in Cornwall, and then you put your telly on for your 6 o'clock news, and you see Anjem Choudary, and his chants were always this. I'm sure he must have sat down and thought, what is the most provocative thing I could possibly say to make people furious with Muslims? I'm telling you, every time he spoke, it was like, we will take over this country whether you like it or not. We will spit on the graves of your dead soldiers. And it's like, you couldn't say something more infuriating if you tried. He was an agent provocateur. What's the term? Provocateur.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Who's behind him? What's his motivation? I can tell you something. It's not God, it's not Allah, and it's not the messenger of Allah. Whoever is behind that man and his likes, they have to answer as well. Why was he given space on primetime TV constantly, time and time again? Do you not realize that you pushing him onto primetime TV is not only going to solidify Islamophobes in their Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred, but it's also going to be a call which is reaching out to young, vulnerable Muslims who is basically recruiting unstable people.
It's turning the religion into a cult in that sense, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, let's
Well,
change the subject.
Yeah, we're going to go into...
You're asking about Islam, peaceful. So Islam doesn't say we are the religion of peace. However, peace is strongly emphasized throughout the Quran, especially mercy. If you take the word for peace in Arabic, it's salam. All you have to do is add one letter or one line to the word peace, and you have Islam. Yeah, so it's peace is from throughout the religion. And as I was saying before, even in times of conflict, the aim of the conflict is to establish peace as soon as possible. The only time that conflict is allowed is to establish peace.
And this will set us up nicely for the next thing I was going to ask you, the 5 pillars of Islam. So when I was doing my homework on these, I kind of thought to myself, well, this is kind of like the foundations of the Islamic traditions, and I thought this doesn't really sound anything radical, extreme. It's if anything, it's arguably very, very the definition of peace. But go on, I'll let you expand on what the 5 pillars are and how they are presented in the community.
The 5 pillars: groom little children, take over the country, bomb and kill whoever you can. No, they're not the pillars of Islam.
They're going to be great sound bites, by the way. But
they are not the pillars of Islam. As much as extremists and terrorists on all sides would like you to believe, the first pillar of Islam is regarding the actual faith, and it's the most important. You could even leave the other 4 to side to focus on this one, the first pillar, and that is to testify that there is no Lord except God. Again, this concept, this idea that there's only one God. Even in the Bible, the New Testament and the Old Testament, you'll find, calls to understanding, worshipping one God, and the belief that Muhammad is the messenger of God. What does that mean? Do Muslims worship Muhammad? No. Is Muhammad God? No. Was he sent by God? Yes. Why was he sent by God? To teach people that there's only one God, the same as all the prophets before him. The second pillar is prayer. 5 times daily prayers. The third pillar is zakat, charity, or an alms tax, which is basically for rich people to contribute something back into society. So if you're poor, you don't pay zakat. If you're rich, you've had money lying around for over a year and you haven't done anything with it, then you have to take 2.5%, a 40th of that, and give it back to eligible recipients.
Just to ask, though, I'm a huge boxing fan, and obviously at the moment, Turki Al-Sheikh, who's basically monopolising the sport of boxing and beyond, would that tie into what he's doing? Would that come under the third pillar that he's giving back, or is that
you can't fund boxing matches with zakat?
Sorry, I kind of giving back.
So there are 2 types of charity. There's the zakat, which is the obligation which you have to do. And you'll find, if you look at the statistics, British Muslims are some of the most generous givers in the country. Part of it is because of this zakat, which they're paying. And then there are eligible recipients of zakat, and they go from a poor person, a destitute person, a slave who wants to buy their freedom back in the times of slavery, somebody who's lost or who's away from home. There are the categories of them. And then there's the other charity, which is kind of optional. And generosity in general is something which is...
That's what I was alluding to, sorry, when I mentioned Turki Al-Sheikh, like the fact that it's not a charity he's giving, but he's providing entertainment, isn't he, for giving back in that sense. Yeah.
It's really interesting. Maybe we don't need to go too deep into it, but Turki Al-Sheikh is one of the descendants. So Saudi Arabia traditionally has been run by 2 families. Al Saud, who dealt with the politics, and Al Sheikh, who dealt with the religion. So a lot of the religion which has been coming out from Saudi Arabia, which many people would say is unpalatable, has been coming from the Al Sheikh family.
All right, okay.
But now this youngest one, he's gone completely the other way. So he's not into prayers and fasting. Okay. It looks like he's into WWE and it was it's really interesting to see how things are changing over there. But for the sake of not diluting the discussion,
that's my fault. So, I sent you off balance.
So charity you have as the third pillar. Then you have fasting the month of Ramadan, and you'll notice here a lot of these things now they're about discipline. So the first pillar was about the belief, and now the other pillars are about how you live your life and about discipline. So imagine praying 5 times a day.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's a really difficult thing to do. Once you get into it, it's fine. Except when you live in a country like England, where summertime and wintertime vastly differ in the timings. So when we have short days, all the prayer times come close together, and when we have long days, all they're spread out a little bit. So yeah, you've got the fasting of the month of Ramadan. Again, it's about discipline. And some people think that you can't have anything for the whole month. No, that's not the case. Just during the daylight hours. So during the daylight hours, you're not allowed to eat anything. You're not allowed to drink anything, including water. Mm-hmm. Yep, no water. And you're not even allowed to have relations with your husband or wife. So you've got to really, really discipline yourself. And as soon as the sun goes down, then you can do what you need to do. And that lasts for a month. Again, one principle you'll find in the Islamic faith is that whenever there's a necessity, there are special rules which apply. What does that mean? So if you're traveling, you don't have to fast. You can make it up later. If you're ill, if you have an illness, say for example, you have to have your insulin injections. Otherwise, if you're, severe diabetes or any other severe condition, you don't have to fast. And likewise, even for the prayers, that applies. Any rule so people often see Islam as a really, really strict religion. The more you study about the rules in Islam, the more you study that there is actually a lot of flexibility and a lot of, I'd say, mercy, which runs through all of the rulings. So you will always find exceptions for the difficulties. And the final pillar is the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage towards Mecca for whoever is able to financially and physically afford it. And I don't know if you have any idea of the cost of Hajj.
No.
I've just seen a package advertised for this coming year, and it's gone up to £13,500 now.
Wow.
to go on this trip to Hajj from the UK. So I think that's out of a lot of people's reach, which is a shame, because back in the day, I remember the first Hajj which I did, it cost me £750, and it wasn't too expensive. But I think it's just, because the numbers of Muslims all over the world are increasing in terms of population is growing. The middle class as well is growing. So a lot more Muslims have access to money, but Mecca is still the same size. Medina is still the same size, and they only allow a fixed number of people to go every year for safety concerns and security. I remember back in the days, about 20 years ago, there were a lot of unfortunate incidents what used to happen on Hajj because of the sheer number of people and the crowds. But it's phenomenal when you're there and you meet people from countries you've never even heard of.
I've seen. I mean, I think it looks on the photos I've seen, and even from your own Instagram stuff when you're over there, it does look like such a regal, aesthetically pleasing place. And it's a shame that the cost has gone up so much that not all Muslims.
But that's the Hajj. So outside the Hajj season, which is in a specific month of the year, you're free to go whenever you want. So that obviously you can. They do Wizz Air flights now from Gatwick straight to Medina.
Oh right,
so that's a direct flight now, and so that's not going to cost you £13,500. Jet2 holidays.
Yeah, with the sound, the theme tune playing over it.
And can we cue that in now?
Yeah. Okay, so I suppose, so cheers for unpacking that. Just another thing as well in relation to Ramadan. Am I right in thinking that was when the Quran was that's why the month it was handed to Prophet
That's when
Muhammad?
it was first revealed.
First
revealed.
Initial
revelation happened in the month of Ramadan. Yeah. We're even told as well that Ramadan, the reason that fasting has been prescribed to us, and it says in the Quran, like it was prescribed to those before you, referring to Christians and Jews, is in order that you may get this consciousness, become aware. Like, honestly, you realize that you have a habit. Whenever your mouth is a little bit dry, you'll just go straight to the tap or straight to the fridge. And it's not even hunger. Most people, they don't feel real hunger. It's psychological hunger. And most hunger can be satiated by having a glass of water. So we're not even hungry. It's just impulses. animalistic, and we just reach for the fridge and eat. And what's the difference then between us and an animal? So when you fast, actually, it's good because you feel like you're in control of your body, and you realize that your body is capable of way more than you could ever imagine. So remember when we had this was like maybe 6 years ago, Ramadan fell right in the middle of the summer. So the longest days, imagine. So the sun, we had to stop eating before the sun came up at about 2:30, 3 a.m. And then we couldn't eat until the sun set, and it was almost like 10 p.m. at night. So imagine that whole, and you realize that your body is amazing. Obviously, if you go dizzy and collapse, you're allowed to break your fast, but honestly, the human body is capable. And this is the point. This is the point of Islam in general. It's about setting your soul free. What does that mean? Knowing yourself. We're told whoever knows themselves will know their Lord. And so this journey of self-discovery, about discovering, that ultimately you have this ego, you have this lower self, and it's constantly trying to bring you down and drag you down. And you must resist the urges, and you must turn against it, whatever it wants, your lower self. No, don't give into it. Turn away from it. You are an animal, but you have this lordly spirit inside you. And it's about understanding the lordly spirit. And the best way to do that is sometimes to suppress the animal. So people feel heightened spiritual experiences when they're physically fasting. So depriving yourself of food, water, sex, you're kind of repressing your physical body. But that's when your soul shines, if you like, and you start to realize that.
It's interesting. Obviously, I mentioned boxing there, and arguably one of the biggest names in sports, Muhammad Ali. I don't know whether people are aware of that, but he was a Muslim, and the discipline. I mean, I've watched loads of documentaries. We'll not go down that rabbit hole, but the discipline he contributed to sport and to the sport of boxing was based on his belief system, being so regimented in what he did, and that applies to a lot of modern day. I mean, Khabib in mixed martial arts is another example of high level of discipline that he contributes to his faith. So it's interesting because obviously I know a lot of my listeners are sort of sports fans as well. Is go back and have a look and see some of these top sports athletes, not necessarily in combat sport, and you'll be surprised how many of them are Muslim.
And that's their motivation as well. But then again, sports is just about the physical. And I'm not saying that to put that down. But imagine if there's this other world, this spiritual world. And this is the thing. So you look in the mirror. I used to do it when I was younger. I used to look in the mirror and is this really me? And you just feel like there's something more. There's something more. And personally, this is how I like to see everybody. Okay, you can see their outer appearance, you can see the way they look, but there's something more which is deeper inside. And I think the ultimate goal is to discover what that is. But it's hard. It's very, very difficult. When you invite people to go on this spiritual journey, then what it involves is doing a lot of self-reflection. And for people who aren't used to it, who've kind of been set in their ways and living their life for years, and then are told to look inwards and find your own faults, it can be very, very uncomfortable for a lot of people. As Michael Jackson told us, the man in the mirror.
Well, yeah, great song. So I'm kind of going to give a little bit of an opportunity here. Like we touched on at the start, you hear people make the accusation, not enough Muslims are condemning people, condemning, terrorist organisations. So first and foremost, what does condemning, I know the dictionary definition, but is it a different definition in Islam, or is condemning universally accepted as?
No. I suppose you could say warn against.
Okay.
Yeah, so warn against, there's this concept of warning against people who are dangerous. Yeah. So make for a great soundbite, but do you condemn ISIS? Yeah.
Do you condemn Al-Qaeda?
Yeah.
Do you condemn the Taliban?
I'm really sorry to smile and as I'm doing this.
Well, you're probably going to smile with this next one I'm going to ask you.
Go on.
Do you condemn Tommy Robinson?
I think not blank condemnation. I condemn a lot of the division and ignorance which he's putting out there. At the same time, I see why he has. I understand. I get it. Why he's got so much support, especially when he's talking about issues which nobody else seems to be talking about, which are so kind of important to people. I don't agree with the way he talks about these things, and I do find him to be very emotional. But like what I've been saying all along, I also believe in that potential good which I'm talking about. I think everybody has it within them. And I'd like to hope with time. I know he flirted with a Muslim organization once. This was a few years ago. It was an organization called Quilliam Foundation. Tommy Robinson actually joined them and was part of their team. I didn't really value that organization very much. I thought they were a bit of a government setup, to be honest, who weren't working for the good of society. That aside, Tommy did join that organization and he was a part of them. And that kind of demonstrates to me that he has got it inside him somewhere to try and be reasonable and try and come over. But I think Tommy Robinson's role in the future of this country, it's going to be an increasingly important one. Whether anybody likes that or not, he is listened to. He managed to have a huge gathering in London. Whether you say it was 110,000 like the police did or 3 million like he did, doesn't matter. It was a lot of people. Personally, I asked ChatGPT and I uploaded some photographs, and ChatGPT put the estimate at about 250k. So both the estimates were wrong from the police and from Tommy Robinson. But yeah, he's mobilizing people. A lot of people are upset, but I do believe that the vast majority of people in this country don't necessarily take the line. So if you do the figures, okay, 200,000, say 3 million people went, which I don't think they did. But how many didn't go? How many didn't go? And I think most people are reasonable and they're able to filter through the information which they're given. In other words, not everybody's a mug. You can't just come with your X platform and just shove out all these messages to people and expect that you're going to dupe everybody. It doesn't work like that. Again, Elon Musk, he spoke at the Uniting the Kingdom rally. He said something along the lines of, "You will be killed. So if you don't do anything, you need to defend yourselves." It's like, what is going on? One of the richest people, I think he is the richest in the world, isn't he?
He's up there, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's currently sat at number
and
one.
He's saying things like that to
Elon seems to be getting, because he was quite heavily involved with the campaign and getting Trump elected.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I suppose I think with someone like Elon, it's very much kind of just what he's achieved, everything you possibly can in terms of financial endeavors.
So now he wants to rule the world.
Yeah, so maybe that's the next direction. No, I subscribe a lot. Yeah, exactly. I subscribe a lot of the stuff that you said there with regards to Tommy. I mean, I think the way Tommy's maybe articulated things over the years, and then there's that stereotype with the EDL and all other endeavours. I don't think he's been particularly palatable in some regards. But I've never met the guy, but from what I've seen, I do kind of feel it's coming from a good place with him. His execution is debatable, but I do think it is. You can see the anger, the passion that comes when people genuinely feel like that. I don't think they do. They're certainly not. I think it's gone past the stage of trying to clout chase.
So here's a question then. Imagine if you were Muslim and you hear this chap, Tommy Robinson, saying that I am an enemy of Islam. Openly saying, I'm an enemy of Islam. And yeah, actually, I'm not too bothered about Muslims, but Islam is the problem. We have to get rid of Islam. Like that's your faith. That's your belief. How would you deal with that?
I mean, I would like to, obviously, if I ever get the opportunity to chat with him, that's something I would put to him. And I would ask, how do you differentiate? Because you're saying Muslims are okay. It's the ideology of Islam. How are you differentiating the two?
So leave Tommy to one side for now. I'm talking about you. You're a Muslim. You believe in Islam. It's a faith and a religion which has brought so much good into your life, into your family's life, into your community's life. How do you deal with this person?
Obviously, it's not great. You don't want to hear that. That's your faith. That's what you dedicate your life to. Especially if you're like yourself, you're practicing Muslim and you're following it sort of to the letter, as it were. Yeah, obviously you're going to be a little bit disrespected by that, massively disrespected. If I was in an opportunity to chat with Tommy, this is what I'd want to do: have a conversation, explain why, not to get heated, not to be provocative. Let's just have a conversation. And I think we're kind of going full circle with this interview now. That's what we've been saying from the off. The needs to be more conversing with our fellow man. But if I was, in answer to your question, if I was a Muslim, and because I always try and put myself in people's shoes, if I was a Muslim and I was hearing that, I'd be disheartened. I'd be devastated. It's not nice things to hear.
I know some of Tommy Robinson's close friends as well. And what they've painted is a picture of somebody who was he was raised next to Anjem Choudary in Luton, in the heart of Luton, where most of his interactions, they were people of this type, these Muslim extremists. So I can understand to some extent where he's getting it from. But I think for him to drag that out onto a national level, I think it's unfair. And I think I agree with you. It is there would be benefit in having discussion. What I like to do again is, because I don't like to debate, I like to make sure that any question which comes to me or any discussion I have, there's some genuine sincerity from the other side. If that's identified, then I'm the kind of person who will sit down with anyone. In fact, I wrote a poem about this.
Okay.
Because I was criticized for having a coffee with a Zionist Jewish rabbi, and all of a sudden, because I had this coffee with this guy whose politics were different to mine, whose religion was different to mine, whose ethnicity was different to mine, so many people decided that I was a sellout, and I've gone, I've thrown the Palestinian cause under the bus, and I explained to people that no, that's just because you sit down with somebody or share a table or have a discussion with somebody doesn't mean that you agree with them 100%. It will probably mean, just by virtue of you sitting down with them, that you agree with them more than you did before you sat down with them. My best response was this poem. Shall I?
Yeah, no, feel free. Stage is yours.
It's called "I Sat with a Jew." Right, so here's the poem what I wrote. And the whole idea is about not criticizing somebody who's willing to sit down with people, even if they're radically different to them in whatever they believe or their background or their lifestyle. Do you feel upset that I sat with a Jew? And with a Christian, does that unnerve you? What about an atheist? That angers too. A gay, an alcoholic, what shall you do? One Sufi here, a Shia there or two, with the Brotherhood and the Salafi crew. Well, let me explain what the Prophet would do. He'd welcome everybody, black, white or blue. And the House of Islam has big doors, so true, with invites for them all, not just me and you. Even if they reject, their rights are still due. We all need bigger hearts, if only we knew.
That's lovely, that, mate. And did you post that online? Or
I did, and it went viral, and it went viral in Malaysia and Indonesia for more than anywhere else for some reason. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose. I mean, these countries must sort of be looking at the Western world at times and thinking, what the hell is going on over there? I feel really, because we're going to have a sort of a shift, like that was really palatable and positive, and I'm going to ask you some controversial questions now. But again, we've not come on to, I think it's been a great conversation so far. I've not got you on to debate or challenge. For me, it's an education, and hopefully the listeners in turn can be educated on that. That's what the end goal would be for me, and like what we keep alluding to, just conversing with your fellow man. Obviously, these are going to be, I'm under no illusion, you've had these questions thrown at you before many a times, but I'm just going to kind of reel them off and get right. your take on it. So the first one would be women's rights. Obviously, we're told the narrative is, or they're forced to wear a burqa, and if they don't, they get beheaded, and all that carry on. I've worked with quite a lot of Muslim women, and the hijab, they tell me they choose to wear that. So you kind of see the lines are blurred. So I'll put that question to you, or that statement to you.
It's probably a mix of both. Probably a mix of women who are forced to wear it by their parents or husband or whatever, and probably lots of women who choose to wear it and feel empowered that they're not objectified or seen as sexual beings. Again, it's down to humans, isn't it? Probably the same if you look at types of trousers, what women wear in society. Maybe some of them are forced to wear them by their boyfriend because he's jealous, and maybe some of them are what they want to wear. But the general rule in Islam is you dress modestly. Modestly. Now that's open to interpretation. What exactly does that mean? And usually you're told anything what doesn't show the shape and contours of your body, even if you're a man. No, there's a dress code in Islam for men. You're not allowed to show the area between for most Muslims, not all, between your navel and your knees.
Oh, right, okay.
And that's why you might notice now when you're looking at your MMA and your football, and some athletes, they'll wear shorts up to their belly buttons and below their knees.
I haven't noticed, but I'm definitely going to look out for that now. Okay, and then another one, we've kind of not touched on the life of the Prophet Muhammad, but I suppose these questions tie into it. People saying, he ordered the beheading of 600 people. He was a warrior. He ruled with an iron fist. What's your kind of take on that?
Right. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he was the most merciful of people. And that mercy was even extended to his enemies. So there are several examples where he'd be in the battlefield. Just for the record, he never killed anybody personally. The armies who were with him did at his command, but the ruling was always, if they show the hand of peace, then you take the hand of peace. So that's the first thing to do. The situation with Bani Qurayza, so I'm not sure about the numbers exactly, and I find this as a talking point. Again, most Muslims don't even know this story, but it's a talking point within kind of certain critics of Islam. And so what happened here is that it was a regional war, and the Muslims, led by the Prophet Muhammad in Medina, had taken pledges of allegiance, allies from other tribes. So there were several Jewish tribes in Medina. One of the tribes were the Bani Qurayza. They pledged allegiance that they would be an ally in this battle, as some of the Arab pagans were coming up from Mecca, and they had their allies as well. What happened at the last minute is this particular tribe of Bani Qurayza, they switched sides and turned on the side of the Arab pagans. In other words, they wanted to slaughter and eliminate not just the Muslims, but the other Jewish tribes in Medina as well, and this other alliance. And so the punishment for them was for their because they were traitors, not because they were Jewish. Many people use this as an attack on Islam, saying the Prophet Muhammad hated Jews, he was anti-Semitic, the Quran is full of anti-Semitism. No, it's not. No, it's not. One of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad was an Israelite, and she complained because she was being belittled in Medina by some women. So the anti-Semitic tropes what you hear today in this country. Oh, Jews have got big noses. Oh, Jews want to take over the world. Oh, Back then it was, oh, Jews are short people. So Jews used to be ridiculed because they used to be seen to be shorter. And so what happened is some women were making fun of this wife of the Prophet. And he said to her, he actually praised her Israelite lineage. He said, what can anybody say about you when your father is Aaron, your uncle is Moses, and your husband is the messenger of God? In other words, you come from this noble Israelite lineage. And so this is a theme which is continued throughout Islam. So the death sentence for the tribe of Bani Qurayza, which you mentioned, was not because they were Jewish. It's because they were traitors, and they'd put the safety of the whole of Medina on the line, including other Jewish tribes there as well.
So again, that's being used as rhetoric, basically. Yeah. So I suppose the next one would be Prophet Muhammad trying to convert everybody to Islam, and obviously at the moment that goes nicely with the narrative of trying to introduce Sharia law. So I suppose first of all, explain Sharia law, and then the notion of what I've just said.
Sharia law, just to explain it, it's the rules of Islam. Simple. That's all it is. Like if you open, I could take you to my house. I've got books on Sharia law, and we could open
You
one.
absolute radical.
No, listen. We could open one. Do you know what the first chapter's about? How to have a shower. Seriously. First you clean your private parts, then you clean your head and your shoulders, then you clean the right half of your body, and then you clean the left. It's just the order in how to do things, the rules.
Yeah. And I think that's just tying down to people who don't understand.
Yeah.
They're ignorant to it.
Yeah, using soap as well.
Oh, really? Cleanliness first.
No, but yeah. So, sorry, what was the other
so
part
it
of
was obviously we touched on Sharia law, but the Prophet Muhammad trying to
convert everybody.
Yeah.
No.
So that's incorrect.
The Quran so the Prophet Muhammad never forced anybody to convert, and the reason for that is because if they did, they would be a hypocrite by the definition of hypocrisy. Why would you want somebody to pretend to be Muslim and in your ranks if they don't even believe it in their hearts? What that means is you're going to have ranks full of hypocrites. No, the Quran very clearly says, and whoever wants to believe, let them believe. And whoever wants to disbelieve, let them disbelieve. Some people, they refer to the letters from the Prophet Muhammad to different rulers in the region. So what happened is that when the Muslim community was established in Medina, the Prophet Muhammad sent letters inviting all the neighbors to Islam. So he sent them to the kings of Oman. He sent them to the Caesar of Persia, the Persian emperor. He sent them to, I think it was Hercules or Heracule of Rome. He sent all these letters and he said, accept Islam and you will live in peace. And if you don't accept Islam, then there's the jizya. And the people get really, really upset with this idea of jizya. They say it's a disbelief tax. And it's not. Muslims have to pay zakah, as we said before, in the pillars of Islam. So if you're a non-Muslim member of society now, in a Muslim society, is it fair that all these Muslims are going to be paying 2.5% and you don't pay anything? If anything, in most cases when jizya was implemented, and that, by the way, is for non-Muslims to contribute to the state, and it's often very symbolic and less than the zakah anyway. But that, yeah. So you don't force anybody to become Muslim if they don't want to. But I know there's this constant narrative out there, and it's in a lot of circles.
And it probably ties into like what we said with the likes of, God, I don't want to give him any more airtime, but Anjem Choudary, basically like this cult-like. So when people are hearing that and they're just associating that, oh, Muslims, he's a cult leader, Islam's a cult, then they're automatically gonna, without doing the research, gonna lean to the fact that, well, they must try and force everyone to join Islam.
But do you know what's interesting? In the same way that Islam has never required anybody to believe if they don't believe, because that just defeats the object. Defeats the object completely. You can't force anybody to believe. In the same way that there have been extremist elements who have been historically and force people to convert to Islam, there's also been the other extreme. So the Anjem Choudrys have always been around. This is what I'm saying. And the Tommy Robinsons have always been around, telling everybody, oh, they're trying to convert you all by force. And you find the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So this next question, I've kind of left this till last, as it were. And you probably know what's coming anyway. But I'm just going to ask it how it kind of gets presented. So how do you as a Muslim condone the Prophet Muhammad marrying a 6-year-old and then sleeping with her when she was 9?
Thank you for asking. It's the question what everybody seems to be asking. Sometimes I feel like people see it as the gotcha issue.
Just to point, I'm not trying to be provocative here. I'm just asking.
No, I'm saying that there are people out there who think this is the gotcha. Oh, okay. Well, Islamic monotheism might be more pure than what I believe in, and all your religion might be more organized and bring more discipline and have more positive impact than mine, but the Prophet Muhammad married a 6-year-old. Ha ha ha, you're not right anymore. And so my response to this is, number one, the age of his wife Aisha is not mentioned in the Quran.
I just want to segue, having read it, because I was purposely knowing that he was coming on, I was purposely trying to look out for that. Oh. And I can vouch, being a non-Muslim who's read the Quran, that it's not mentioned at all. It's not.
Why would the Quran mention that? The Quran is, as you will have found, is full of stories talking about the oneness of God, the need to be a good person, and the need to follow the messages which his prophets and messengers have brought to us. That's a summary of it. But we also have another source of texts in Islam, and that is the hadith. Now, these are either records of the words of the Prophet Muhammad, unlike the Quran, which is the word of God. The Quran is not the word of Muhammad, it's the word of God, which was revealed to him. And we have the hadith, which are recordings of the words and the deeds of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, these are split up into different categories, depending on whether you're a Sunni Muslim or a Shia Muslim. In the Sunni texts, then they are given different classifications depending, I don't want to sound too complex, but depending on the veracity of the chains of transmission. In other words, who has told us this, and where did they hear it from, and where did they hear it from, and where did they hear it from, and are they reliable people to be conveying this information? So one of the highest types of hadith in terms of its chain of transmission is known as sahih, which is authentic. And there are sahih hadiths which mention that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was married to Aisha when she was 6, and the marriage was consummated, i.e. sex happened when she was 9. So this is a sahih hadith. We also have other sources of Islamic knowledge, one of which is biographies of people. The science is known as seerah. Now, scholars of seerah will tell you that when you look on the timeline of different events, like how old Aisha's sister was, how old she was, what age she was when she moved from Mecca to Medina. Anyway, they put all the historical timeline together and they come up with different figures. They say, no, actually, she was more likely to have been 18 to 22, I think the ages. Put that to one side. Put all the different ages, which are essentially numbers, which are very important in the society where we live today. The numbers, very important. If you have sex with somebody who's under 18, then that's seen as statutory rape in the society where we live now. That wasn't the case. They didn't have numbers back then. The way they determined a woman to be mature and ready for marriage is after she shows the signs of puberty, the main sign for a girl being the onset of the period. Back in that culture, it was normal for Muslims and Christians and Jews and pagans and atheists, whoever you were back then, it was normal. She wasn't seen as a little girl back then. Whether she was 9 or 18 or 22, she was considered a woman by that society. And for that reason, personally, I find it really disingenuous when people kind of make this new story up and they say, well, the reason we've had Pakistani Muslim men grooming young white girls in this country is because that's what their religion teaches them to, and because the Prophet Muhammad had sex with a child, and they think that the Prophet Muhammad is the best role model, therefore they're doing it for religious reasons. Well, as we said before, these people they're not people. I don't want to say they're not Muslim, because you can't do that as a Muslim. That's usually what extremists do, excommunicate everybody. But these are not Islamic actions when you're going around grooming girls. And to try and blame this somehow on the religion of Islam it's not fair at all. So I hope that answers for you, and I hope that answers for anybody else. And you don't have to agree with it. But as far as we know, all you have to do is study the life of the Prophet Muhammad, and listen to, because Aisha, she's famous in these circles for being young, but actually she's famous in the Islamic narrative for being an independent thinker. She was one of the few women who reached the highest levels of scholarship in her time. So she was like a source of, we call it ijtihad mutlaq, which is like this highest level of understanding of knowledge and sciences, that she was able to kind of issue her own rulings. So that's what she's famous for within Muslim circles, not because she was a small child, which, as I said, according to the culture at that time, she wasn't deemed to be a child anyway. You know, none of the critics of the Prophet Muhammad have ever criticized him for this particular point, i.e. the age of Aisha, for 14,500 years. 1400 and 50 years since it happened. It only seems to be an issue which is popping up and doing the rounds now.
I think as well, what people need to take into account is I get why people would have that thought process, 9-year-old, and the argument would be, irrespective of society, a 9-year-old still a 9-year-old, and I'm not going to try and debate you or challenge you on that. But what I would look at it, my takeaway is the information's very much blurred with the hadiths, whether it was a 9-year-old, 18-year-old. So my sort of take on it is, we're not dealing with concrete information here, are we? In that sense,
yeah, we're not. But even the way I like to see it is that even if, let's assume that she was 9 years old, according to the culture of that time, she was not a child; she was a woman. That's how people saw. People were mature, a lot more mature back then. Does that have the same implications today? Of course not. Like I said before, like here we have a number system. A girl could be physically and mentally mature, but still be considered a minor in our rules here and our system here. Whereas back then it was. Don't forget, we're talking about 1,500 years ago, 1,500 years ago. There have been many instances throughout the last millennium and a half. That's the period we're talking about here, where things like the age of marriage have been very, very low. And again, we can refer to other examples in other holy scriptures, which are mentioned in the Old Testament, for example, which I won't repeat because I don't want it to seem like I'm kind of belittling somebody else's religious text. But there are examples of this. We're talking about different times completely. What did the Prophet Muhammad teach us? He taught us that when we are in a country, we respect the law of the land. So for any Muslim to consider marrying somebody who is not at the age of marriage in this country is not acceptable. And you'll actually find that age of consent in many Muslim countries today is like 18, in some it's 16. It's like the rest of the world. I think in some states in America it's 14. In Spain it was 14 until recently. Every country has their own rules. You know, we used to hear the stories of Gretna Green and how some of our grandparents used to go up because they could get married there at 16, whereas the rest of the country it was 18. But yeah.
No, and I think it's good to outline that, that, you know, there is that sort of society cultural difference. Even today, it's not uniform across all countries. I've just got one kind of final question. It's been great chatting to you, by the way, mate. I've really enjoyed it, and I probably could have gone on for another 2 more hours. I'm hoping that we've delved into some politics, but hopefully we've kind of unpacked and educated. I've certainly learnt new things. I mean, straight off the bat, Imam, I thought your role was that of an actual imam rather than the stuff that you're doing. I suppose the opportunity now, I'm just going to give you the spotlight, and it's our final question of, what would you say to some of the listeners who they've got to this point in the interview and they still think that Muslims are dangerous?
You can go to one of these mosque open days all over the country. I think this is a really good initiative, to be honest. I think it breaks a lot. Don't worry. One of your local mosques will have an open day. Go along, see what it's about. And I've been told by non-Muslim friends that actually Muslims can be very, very dangerous, especially when it comes to your cholesterol levels, because Muslims have a reputation for feeding you a lot. And that's a good thing. When the Prophet Muhammad first arrived in Medina, the first words which left his lips were spread peace and feed people food. So let's eat together, let's talk together, let's discuss together. And personally, I think that's the way forward.
No, and what a poignant way to end it, mate. Just quickly before we sign off, obviously everything will be in the description, but where can people get hold of you, get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, social media is the best way, and even then you're going to have trouble catching up.
Yeah, I have to point out Adam's stories. You'll click on one and you'll have about, I'd say, a good 100 white dots to go through at the top. So yeah, you've been under a... But no, that's good.
I
That's
actually
good.
do different posts depending on the platform. So what I find is Instagram is more young people. They're into their sports, they're into their music, they're into their food. So I kind of do special stories for that. Facebook is more people our age, isn't it?
Yeah.
A bit more boring, a bit more yeah.
But no, yeah, and obviously, as I said, everything will be in the description if you want to get in touch with Adam. Adam, it's been a pleasure, mate. I hope you've had a good time as well. And, you know, it's been great to be able to give a platform to someone who obviously lives and breathes the faith, who knows it better than probably those who are just being critical, who have had on. That's not to say previous guests aren't credible. I think all my guests are credible. But in the interest of nuance, it's good to hear it from both sides. So thank you so much, pal. Really appreciate it. I've been Daniel Hodges. This has, of course, been Adam Kelwick, and you've been listening to the Hodge-Cast. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we believe you can definitely take something away from today's guest. We couldn't attract guests such as this without a solid fan base. The best way we can grow this is through subscriptions. So, if you haven't already done so, can I please ask you hit that subscribe button and help us continue to put out content for you all to enjoy. Until next time.